You read the title of this video. How does Duelo Maestro hold up to this day, and why do we still remember it? No matter how long it's been since its release back in 2016, someone would bring it up in conversation, especially about playing levels together.
Hey, you know what? It's been pretty nice when we all got to meet up, but we don't really have anything to do right now, so like, what do we do?
We could play Duelo Maestro.
Ooh, I like that idea. Yeah. I like that idea. Dude, I like that idea too.
It's the quintessential two-player level in Geometry Dash when thinking about two-player levels in general, and that made me wonder, why is it?
Hey, it's Puueds, and today I finally figured out why I have two hands. Dude, let me show you. See?
After the behemoth of the video that was the random gauntlet contest, I wanted to make a few short videos sharing my thoughts on particular levels in Geometry Dash that are popular, niche, or just pretty cool. Duelo Maestro may be a weird first pick, but when playing Dronification by Ivy Teal for the random gauntlet contest, I started to think back on how some levels succeed more than others at utilizing the two-player mode. I've already made a video covering two-player levels, and go check that out, but for this video, we're checking out only Duelo Maestro. This level came out all the way back on August 15, 2016 in 2.0, with various updates in 2.1 and 2.2 to bring it up to standards. We'll be going through the gameplay and decoration as usual, but there's one thing that I realized with this level. It has a weird lack of cohesion, along with some kind of lackluster decoration and having some really random ideas. They bring the level all together into a sort of cacophony on the surface, yet I love to sit down and play it anyways. So let's look into it, going in order of the level with the first pre-drop. For a level that literally translates to Master Duel from Italian, the level features a lot of you just playing by yourself and the other person basically waiting until it's their time to play at the drop. And if you're bad at the game, well, I hope your friend's ready to wait.
Where did everyone go?
I always found that kinda weird, like even at the time. Half the level is comprised of you playing solo, so this level should really be called Duelo and Soltello Maestro. As someone who has made a two-player level, I can really relate to this. It's this weird dichotomy in designing levels like these because you have to account for one person playing and two people playing at the same time. And sometimes it's near impossible to design for both styles perfectly. Something else I found kinda weird as well was its visuals. From its 5 parts, they are all really different from each other. Like, you could say these two first parts are the moon and how cold it gets with the invisible blocks and ice picks, and then the other two are during the night, which, okay, it kinda starts to make sense. Until the second cube part, which it goes for a typical 2.0 design style. Like, what? Also, this pre-drop has the most random visual update changes across, like, its entire lifespan. If you look back at, say, Kramal's video on 8 years ago and compare it to now, the difference is literally night and lesser night. On a final note, the build up to the drop is actually really nice. I haven't seen anyone really speak of it, but it really does wonders for the level. And now, the first drop. It's really simple, even for its time. Yet, I'd argue the decoration and visuals are surprisingly still compelling. The first 4 segments here are completely monochrome, kinda going for a lunar eclipse. It makes more sense when you look at the song's name. It's a cool callback to the pre-drop, but it's more abstract than the somewhat literal parts before. But it still has some segments that are quite more literal. For example, the sun and moon segments here are my favorites because it just feels cool to power through these segments. Despite its sort of lack of polish, it's quite endearing due to its sheer simplicity and 2.0 vanilla-esque way of representing day and night. It seems very inconsistent, but another way of looking at it is that Duelo Maestro is always ready to throw you one environment or idea after the next, ultimately leading to a very fast-paced part of the level, which actually fits the song here. As for the gameplay, well, it's symmetrical.
Wow.
It's very straightforward. It seems too simple, but there's also a little bit of nuance in that you're not exactly clicking and holding the exact same amount of time for both icons, especially made more noticeable if you're using different controllers for each icon, like mouse for player 1 or keyboard for player 2. Duelo Maestro also tries to build itself up throughout the entire level. Of course, it uses the entire song so it can actually do that, but it's restrained to not going to duel at the very start despite its level name, and having the first pre-drop being symmetrical is an interesting choice. It's very player focused and it lets players learn the basics even though everyone already kinda knows it. Now let's start talking about the second pre-drop. I don't really have much to say. This robot part, for example, has, I guess, a lot of changes to it. One version had to be someone's footsteps, another version has nothing at all, and the final version now is just kind of a pattern. The wave and ship part afterwards is genuinely like the most forgettable part of the level. The most interesting thing about this part is that there's this weird mechanic of flinging yourself using those extruding blocks. It's a random idea that Duelo Maestro has, and I guess it's just there. But then there's this part. This is where Duelo Maestro starts becoming a lot more mechanically diverse, and also kinda weird. Weirdly, it has a streak of several orb clicks in a row, and another staircase where you can just hold. But it also has optional orbs beneath it if you're feeling kinda swag. It is actually possible to survive if you go down that path though. The part following afterwards has invisible game mode changes in timing of the song, and not gonna lie, I actually never felt such hype getting to a drop like this. It should feel unfair, but when you die, it actually does feel like it's your fault and you can learn from it. It's weird, but it works. It's so smooth, and the insanely good song Lunar Abyss by Lechaze, I think that's how you pronounce it, it just really ties everything together here, and it makes this part just so fun to play. And finally, we've hit the second drop that made this level infamous. And it is great. It has so many ideas to run with, and this duel tests it all. It has muscle memory with 2 icons of the same game mode or different game modes, and having the entire gameplay be asymmetrical. Playing this with another person is no joke, and playing this by yourself is just crazy. If you're playing it with someone, the challenge comes from knowing where to go and not accidentally mess with your friend's thinking. The clicks themselves become easier separately, but the challenge comes from nerves and not messing up. When you're playing it solo, you have to deal with your muscle memory not messing up, and boy does Duelo Maestro make it not easy for solo players. All these segments are designed to have different timings, or clicks that require different holds, or different ways of navigating with both icons. The key is make sure you're not just cheating. But the placement isn't just at the end of each segment, they are placed just out of the way to get you to actually pathfind. It's a skill that wasn't prominent at the time and is not really needed in Geometry Dash, since many typical levels are just reacting to and avoiding obstacles and memorizing where they are. Other than that, the gameplay itself is actually really fun, both playing with another person and playing solo. It feels really satisfying and fair, all the while not being that overwhelming. And the pathfinding is actually quite flexible. You can have either the player 1 icon or player 2 icon go in here, and it will still be fine as long as you get the keys. In the very first segment where you're a mini and big ship, you don't have to follow the colors of the keys. This actually only needs like 2 to 3 clicks to pass, and it actually works. Watch this. Yeah, that actually works, and that's my personal strategy for this. Duelo Maestro is still very open, and you can make the most out of it if you try. And finally, we get to the question orbs. It's interesting. The timings are actually not that free, and I wouldn't blame you for accidentally dying there. It's a cool final challenge that is sorta unrelated to the entire point of the level, but still cool nonetheless. There used to be a visual glitch with its coins, where once you go outside the camera bounds, you would get the coins all at once. Unfortunately, it's fixed now, but it was one more unique thing that added to this level.
And that's the entire level. Duelo Maestro feels like an exception to the norm with a lot of staying power thanks to it being the first really big 2-player level. That was actually pretty good. If I had to describe why Duelo Maestro had a lot of staying power, well, it would be that very few levels reach the same level of variety, challenge, and good design. Like, seriously, you can still play it and have a lot of fun despite its minor flaws at times.
Duelo Maestro is a level that knows it's a level, and it takes the time to create ideas that seemingly don't fit together at first, but do in the context of playing from zero. This absolutely shows in the visuals and playing the level either solo or with someone else. When playing it solo, it's a tense romp that becomes the best first level to learn how to play 2-player levels by yourself. For playing with someone else, it knows to not really be that hard, and it makes sure the difficulty comes from the variety and how to track yourself rather than just the timings themselves. A lot of 2-player levels are way more harder and way more complex, but Duelo Maestro hits that right balance between challenge and accessibility. This level is a blast to play by yourself and with friends, because any decently okay GD player can play some of it at the least and still have a lot of fun. This dichotomy of design between solo and 2-player romps is done brilliantly, and Nacho21 nailed it out of the park. The visuals are a mess and bare bones at times, but in today's context, it helps the level lean into what its gameplay stands for, sheer variety and simplicity. There's a lot of focus on flow or structuring gameplay, and most of the 2-player levels fall into design tropes that limit from reaching the same level of accessibility and popularity. A lot of the harder or easier 2-player levels usually divide players into their own section, like in Codependence or We Are Not the Same, or go into more mechanical depth like in Apocalypse After Party. These levels inherently narrow down the 2-player mechanic into a more niche frame, and you really need to specialize in how they play out. But Duelo Maestro doesn't really do that. Instead of dividing its presentation and gameplay structure or creating its own mechanics, it focuses more on level structure that plays out like a main level. It casts a broad net on GD's mechanics and nuances, and expands on your approach to them using the 2-player mode, making the level very easy to understand and play. But Puueds, you might ask, this is some cool analysis, but do you have any examples of this outside of Duelo Maestro? And do you have any orbs from gambling at all?
Yes, and yes.
If there's one level I can think of, remember me mentioning Dronification by Ivy Tail? When I play that level, it's testing the same understanding of GD mechanics and nuances in a 2-player context, and it has its own random ideas much like in Duelo Maestro. It's super accessible and fun. What these levels do so well in the end is that it enables players to express their skills with a more demanding feature of Geometry Dash and how well their understanding of the base mechanics translates. When you beat these levels, it makes you feel like such a good player and that you grew. It's a level that nails player skill expression with Geometry Dash and the 2-player mode together.
Something tells me that facepalming myself is not the right use for my second hand. Wait, guys, let me try something. Oh my god! That's it!
I'm so stupid!